Welcome to the Hidden Philanthropist podcast, proudly presented by the Purdie Foundation. Join us as we uncover the art of giving back.
Hey listeners, our guest today loves a chat, and everything that she has to say is well worth listening to. Her path to philanthropy is one of passion and determination, combined with a sincere commitment to making a difference in all the lives of the children, their families and carers during their cancer treatment. Be ready to laugh a little, probably cry, but most of all be blown away as you hear how Mandy Mandy and her team of volunteers at Koala Kids strive to achieve their vision and their mission. Welcome, Amanda Mandy, to the Hidden Philanthropist podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
Amanda Mandy, an incredibly deserving recipient of the Order of Australia Medal for your services and contribution to children with cancer in Victoria. It's an honour and a privilege to be here today to interview you. And I've got to start with saying an amazing energy level. As soon as I start talking with you, self-described as someone that can talk underwater, an incredible energy, an incredible zest for life, and obviously a real ability to be able to transfer that energy into what you do here, looking around here today. That's pretty full on. I want to talk to you today about your philanthropic work and you as a person and how you've arrived there. There's a bit of a journey to how you arrived here, and I'd love to learn a little bit about that. Firstly, you had quite an incredibly successful life in the corporate life before you got...
Salaried before I ditched the pay packet.
When you were getting paid instead of giving your money away. And I'd love to talk about your early years as well. But first, let's touch on the corporate Mandy Mandy.
Yep, okay, so Mandy Sharp always wanted to be a journalist. So in fact, when I completed my year 12, for some reason after journalism, I put down law. And to do journalism, and I'm not talking years or age or numbers of any of those description, I came out of school having gotten into law, missing journalism, desperate to write. And I was really lucky that during school holidays in my last 3 or 4 years of school, I'd gotten a job at Flinders Lane. My father was in the rag trade and I was working out the back of Leon Haskin Proprietary Limited. Anyway, long story short, there I was complaining about wanting to get into journalism, and the guy, the sales manager that worked there, said to me, "Hey, my mate is the editor of the rag trade at the fashion industry newspaper. She's looking for a sales rep." I said, "Oh, that's me." I'd worked in markets for friends selling maternity clothes and shoes during school holidays. So anyway, Thursday, rang the lady, got an interview on the Friday, started on the Monday. It was the 6th of February. And I was on a week's trial and I stayed there 11 years. So not only did I write, but sold advertising, copywrote, creative direction, all that sort of thing. So I really, not only did I learn all that side of publishing and production, etc., but I also learned everything about the fashion industry, from which buttons you dyed and which ones you cut up and all sorts of things. So that sort of, I suppose, aroused my curiosity for everything fashion. And I was a young fashionista at the time. After a year at Rag Trader, I went back to RMIT to see if I could actually enrol and study the journalism because you needed a cadetship to go with it. And he looked at what I was doing and had an hour of me chatting to him. And he said, "You know what? Just do what you're doing. You're doing well. You're having a ball. You're loving it. You're learning everything firsthand rather than us teaching it to you and you going back and do it." So that's what I did. So that was 11 years with one interview. Then a guy called Rob Palmer, who sadly became the late Rob Palmer 3 weeks after he employed me, was Jag. Remember Jag Clothing? And he'd been approaching me for years, "Come and work with us, come and work with us." So he finally convinced my husband to let me go and work with him because we were married 10 years and we were figuring we were probably going to have kids in a minute. He said, "Give it to me for a year." And then we'll say, well, sadly, he died 3 weeks later. But I then did 5-6 years at Palmer Corporation, basically running their marketing, PR, licensing. In those days, marketing with everything, whereas these days you've got 10 different people doing each of the different roles. They were my 2 salaried positions. I left Palmer Corp in 1995 when Nick was 3 and started Mandy Mandy PR and advertising. And again, that was really because so many people were saying to me, "Oh, look, I had Nick, so I was only wanting to work part-time." They said, "Well, will you do our PR for us? Will you do a newsletter for us? Will you do this for us?" So I did Mandy Mandy PR and advertising until such time as my mental health just got the better of me and I could no longer work. We were trying to have a second child. And that was my working life. And the reason that the whole Koala Kids and why I'm full-time Koala Kids now is I realised after I was diagnosed, and this is all part of my journey, I was diagnosed bipolar while I had 2 very young children. I had very, very long periods of desperately affected depression, which totally negated my ability to do anything, including sleeping, eating, laughing, crying, etc. And then as I was coming out of that and I was being medicated and was sort of on the roller coaster, I decided, well, I need to do something. I can't not do anything. Girlfriends and playgroup and cooking classes and golf and things didn't do it for me. I tried it all, just didn't do it for me. I was constantly anxious about not being productive. So, bar mitzvah age, I'd started doing a couple of projects. At one stage, I think I had about 7 projects on the go. Well, of course, I was doing lots, but doing nothing meaningfully.
And by projects, you mean?
Oh, I was involved with Lighthouse Foundation. I was involved with the Richmond Football Club, ladies group. Yeah, just little projects that I was biting off little bits, but I was doing too much of it. And then I went quite high and became really creative. And I had a list of all these amazing projects that I was going to conquer. And one of them was to create our own something. And that's when the timing of Nick's bar mitzvah and him saying he wanted to donate his money. So Nick deciding that he wanted to put his money towards something that was going to grow, given the contacts that I had and the people that I knew. And a lot of these people were old mates out of the rag trade too.
I was about to say, it would have created an incredible platform for you to be able to network from.
My green book was a go-to book for so many people. Yeah. It became blue years later, and then it became electronic. But I've still got every contact on my phone, thousands of them.
And that's incredibly important for networking in something that you're doing now because... Yeah. I mean, the more people with influence, and I don't mean influence and power financial, but I just mean in terms contacts, of networking, contacts and creates leverage.
Yeah, I'm not a networker, okay? I am a connector. I love, like I said to you, I'll introduce you to people. I don't walk into a room and go, right, I've got him in the barrel, I'll go for it. But I will if the opportunity happens, is created, that I can say to him, like I was introduced someone at the $1 Million Lunch last Friday, and I was introduced to a guy who's bringing Billy Joel out. Well, we're currently looking for auction items for the Melbourne Racing Club's Charity Foundation Day. So I said, look, it'd be really remiss if I didn't ask you. And I get it. So here I am giving him his I get it, you get asked all the time, and I get it that you can't say yes to everyone. I get it that you'd have limited tickets, but can I have 6 tickets for Billy Joel?
You know what's crazy? It's crazy that for someone that is so willing to help, I mean, it really encapsulates your whole life now, helping others. Yeah, you can't ask for help.
No,
Doesn't make any sense, does it? And I want to touch on your early days, and I hope that I'm not getting too personal here now where I ask this question, but you've got extreme empathy towards people, and what you do is incredible. How much of those battles with mental health and your own pain has transferred into your ability to be able to help others?
Look, I don't think any, because the first time I did anything charitable was at school, and I did a fashion parade with some girlfriends from shops down in Burke Road, Camberwell, and we raised money. I don't remember where we donated it, but we did it for charity. It might have even been a school thing. I think I was born with that big heart. I've always loved helping people. So I suppose if we then look at sort of the long period of poor mental health, really what came out of that was I lost 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
That's how I look at that. But my energy and enthusiasm, etc., I've always had that. Unfortunately, it was the other side of the coin, and then the other side of the coin was the depression and the times when I didn't feel like talking and I didn't feel like playing, and I'd move my furniture around in my office and I'd cancel all my appointments. So, yeah, I think as I was born bipolar, I was also born with this natural empathy for other people. And look, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth by any means. However, I grew up, and my mum used to do, you kids don't know how lucky you are. We know that we live in a nice home and we go to a good school. Yeah, we do know all of that. It just maybe we're a bit naughty sometimes.
What was life like for a young Mandy Mandy?
For young Mandy Mandy, I went to a state school. I was one of 3 children. I was the middle pin. I was the eldest daughter. I loved helping Mum. I was a little mother to my baby sister from when I was 3 and she was born. Home was dinner table at our home was it. And I remember getting really upset one day at Melbourne Grammar where Nick was when Paul Sheehan, the headmaster, turned around and he said, the family dinner as we all knew it, it's a thing of yesterday. And I said, that's absolute bullshit. I said, our family, the Stephen and Mandy Mandy family dinner table is our dinner table, and that is where we meet. My kids cannot do extra activities at night if it means they're going to miss dinner 3 nights of the week. Whereas there'd be other mums say, oh no, we never sit at the dinner table because my kids so many activities after school that I'm running around. I just never let that happen. Yeah. The kids could do activities, but it had to work in with our family dinner. And being a Jewish family, that now happens around our Friday night dinner table. And our children choose to come to our Friday night dinner table, and they choose to bring their friends, which they have forever. And at Nick's 30th on the weekend, so many of the kids said, just being in this room reminds us of all the Shabbat dinners that we've been to. And whenever any of them are going overseas, they go, before we go, can we come to Shabbat one more time? So we made our dinner table something. It wasn't about what was on the dinner table or even what we served at the dinner. It was the concept of sitting around on a Friday night. And it just so happens that we do eat off the good china, because I like eating off the good china, and we do that every Friday night. And we have the chicken soup and the traditional things. And it's a place where kids like to be. And so that was, for me, growing up, a really important part. And people often say to me, if you could have one wish, what would it be? And it would be to go back to our dinner table, and my brother, who died at the age of 37, and my sister, who's estranged herself from the family, but just to go back to that dinner table and have one fabulous night. Both my parents have gone, my grandparents have gone, because it was special.
Yeah.
It was really special. So life, and otherwise, a very normal kid growing up. We didn't go away every holidays. We didn't even go away every year. I used to compete in Jewish sporting carnivals, which used to be in a different city each year, and I did that 2 or 3 years, so that was fun from the age of 14. And we went overseas with Mum and Dad for the first time at the end of my year 12, which was pretty special. And then, oh my God, I met Stephen Mandy and married him. Well, I met him at 18, turning 19, and I won't tell you how many years we've been married for. So really, I went from the family dinner table to being a young married Mandy Mandy at the Rag Trader.
And how cool is it when you've got that structure with your children to be able to carry it through and then see as they grow up to still have it? Like I've got 4 kids myself, and knowing now we're sort of similar in a way, although we don't do it is hard during the week, but we always have our family dinner. Tonight being Wednesday night, we have family dinner Wednesday night, and we always have a Sunday family dinner.
Yeah, my kids come Sunday night as well.
And as you see your kids grow up, and as much as they spread wings and fly and go and do their things and they're busy, it's nice that you've got that certainty that on a Sunday they're there and it never changes.
And during COVID, they all wanted to come home. There's only 2 of them, and they wanted to come home. It's nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. What I didn't mention was after the school fashion parade that I did, Mum and Dad were approached if they would raise funds for what was called WIZO. WIZO is the Women's International Zionist Organisation, and it's a global organisation that raises money to fund preschools and kindergartens in Israel. So for orphan children from poor backgrounds. So I was the face of this particular WIZO group, and I think I was 15 or 16. So Mum and Dad had to have a dinner where people pledged money. There were card nights, so if I was dating on a Saturday night, the date would have to come to me to a card night, and I'd sort of pop in and say hi to everyone. And we won. So I actually won a trip to Israel, a return ticket to Israel to visit different places in Israel as an ambassador for this WIZO group. And that was really special to me. I loved that. I loved going to the card nights and talking to the old people. So this is part of that energy that I was talking about before that I think, I was born with it.
So, young Mandy, young Amanda, then you met Stephen.
No, I wasn't
Mandy
Amanda.
Mandy,
I was never Amanda.
Mandy to Mandy Mandy.
Yeah.
You touched on your corporate career, which was incredibly successful, and then now to the current day Mandy Mandy, which, looking around, you do amazing work.
Well, it's not me, it's we. Greatness is not and cannot be built by one person. I know that's a bit cliched, but it's so true. So when I was doing Koala Kids on my own, I wasn't, because I always there was girlfriends that had gravitated to work with me, and we used to have monthly meetings in cafes and then run around and buy things and do things and raise money, etc. So it's always been a group of us. It's now just a much larger group of us, and we have one salaried volunteer.
You've obviously got this incredible drive for philanthropic work, and that's amazing. But that's been varied and for different causes at different times. Before we arrive on where you are today and your foundation, you've transitioned from corporate life and you've had your mental health battles. You've found yourself, you're in this philanthropic space. How did that begin? What did that look like?
It looked like, as I said, me trying to sort of fill my days with things that were going to challenge me and that I was going to find interesting. And then, as I said, I got involved in sort of a whole series of projects. And then literally at one Christmas lunch one day, a mate of mine, Miles Prince, said to me, and our kids were all playing netball together, a friend of ours' daughter had passed away from leukemia at the age of 9. And her dad had said to Miles Prince, who's one of the world's leading haematologists. Okay, so that's work with bloods, both blood cancers and other blood disorders. And he'd said to Miles, kids shouldn't be dying at the age of 9 from leukemia. What can we do to impact a change in that? And Miles said, look, we can do stuff. There's lots of Australians who are dying from blood cancers that shouldn't be dying. There are lots of therapies, lots of drugs, lots of programs that are available for people with hard tumours, but they're not yet in the blood cancer space. So he said, we're wanting to start a foundation where we are going to raise funds to create and impact clinical trials for Australians with blood cancer. He said, and we'd really like Paul Sheehan, headmaster of Melbourne Grammar. Paul's a very close personal friend of Stephen's and mine. So he said, can you get Paul involved? I went, yeah, what else? Well, he said, well, that'd be great. Let's do that first and then we'll get you involved. So that started, and today that's Snowdome Foundation, that I think it's now 13 or 14 years old and has raised in excess of $40 million. I was very involved in Snowdome in the first years as a founding member. I chose not to join the board. I'd always said I'd never best sit on a board. Well, that obviously when Koala Kids happened, that was quite different. So that was Snowdome. So very involved in Snowdome, and we now do what's called the Bloody Good Dinner in support of bloods, so there are now hundreds of Australians who will die with blood cancers one day rather than having died from their blood cancers in years gone by. Okay. So that's really exciting. Then at the same time, or thereabouts, so I was involved in the whole startup, which you've obviously, I don't know if you've done it all yet, but, getting your charity confirmation, getting your tax status, etc. So I watched that all happen, and everyone had always said, oh, it's so hard, it takes years. Well, the Snowdomes did take a while because we were setting up in a major way and it hadn't been done before. But then when it came around to 2015 with Koala Kids, we went to the Charities Commission and we said, we are going to keep doing what we've already been doing for the last 10 years. And these are our budgets and these are our P&Ls. And so they stamped it in 17 days. It was world record stuff because we were continuing to do what we were already doing. We had created a need for what we were doing and we'd proven that we were sustainable. So then, in fact, my psychiatrist, I was introduced to her because her partner was a very close friend of my father's. I then worked very closely with her. She saved my life. I was seeing her 3 times a week for years, quite a few years. Her son died suddenly and she was getting off. She was on a cruise ship in South America. So by the time she got off the cruise ship and rang me and said, I'm on my way back to Melbourne now, winding my way, she said, there's been a ridiculous amount of number of flowers that have been sent and it's a waste of money. Can you see how we can create a foundation whereby the people want to donate now can go to some sort of a cause so that we can find out the reason for young people dying of heart attacks? We thought at the time 1,500 Australians aged between 35 and 50 die of unexplained heart attacks. My brother had died of an unexplained heart attack those years earlier, so there was that connection as well. Anyway, by the time Lorraine got back, I had the bank account set up. We'd found some lawyers who were going to write the Constitution, and today it was the Russ Dennerstein Foundation. It's now called EndUCD. I'm no longer directly involved with it. However, obviously Lorraine is still a close friend, and they're doing great stuff. They've actually raised money to create a data bank whereby anyone that dies under the age of 50, some relevant information is stored, and before too long they're going to be able to join the dots and see who is at risk. So I've been able to use my own experience in doing really good in other ways and then walking away.
So from Snowdome to the other various charities you're involved with to now Koala Kids, how did that look in terms of you knowing and finding out, firstly, what you had synergy with and what resonated best with you, and then going from there on the story about Nick and the $3,000.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about it.
So Nick said, Mum, I want to donate $3,000. Find me a charity. And he said, I want me and my mates to be involved in it. We don't, as I said, don't want to just have a photograph taken and get a certificate and walk away. So we started looking around, and unfortunately the first thing that was a no-no was you couldn't just be, you had to be 15 to legally be volunteer with someone to have insurance. So that straight away sort of changed things a bit. But that was okay. I'd looked around at various charities, but there just wasn't anything that gave Nick that wow factor, and there was nothing really that appealed to me because I figured that I was going to be the one, if there was ongoing interest from us, that I was going to be the one doing it, which really excited me. And this was really early days of some very long depressions. Anyway, we realised that Daniela, our daughter, who's 6 years younger than Nick, was in class with a little boy who had acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which affects most 3-year-old boys that have cancer. I'm going to get the wording of that right too. Ben was approaching the end of his treatment, but meanwhile his dad, Tony McGinn, had grouped together, Tony's a real doer, and he had grouped together other parents, a number of other parents who wanted to fundraise to improve the facilities for families with children with cancer. So this is circa 2005 when, well, obviously a parent wanted to stay the night in their child's bedroom. They were either on the floor or they were in the bottom of the shower. We were talking at the time, the old Royal Children's Hospital, the old Monash Hospital, which didn't have a children's hospital. We're talking worse than third world conditions in these hospitals. So Tony came up with the concept, he's in the entertainment industry. He came up with the concept of the first $1 million lunch. And this is July 2005. We happened to have been invited as guests to the lunch. I'd never heard of Tony McGinn before that. Invited as guests, heard and sucked and saw what Koala Foundation, as it was called, Koala was an acronym for Kids Oncology and Leukemia Action. Okay, so it was really just to play with words because oncology includes leukemias and blood cancers. I then met with Tony at a cocktail party not long after that and was telling him the story about Nick. And Nick's bar mitzvah was early September, so the timing of it was all pretty coincidental. And said to Tony, Nick's got this $3,000 that's burning a hole in his pocket and he wants to get it working somewhere. He said, great, get him to come in and chat to me and let's see what we can do with it. So originally we were all sort of talking around. We liked the idea of Koala Kids, Nick being the kids with his mates, being able to do something if we could. Threw Nick and Tony in a room together and they came up with the idea of Nick and his mates supporting siblings of kids with cancer, and they were really the forgotten group, because obviously the parents' efforts and focus is on the sick child, and it's the siblings that can really be affected. And what can happen there can often have been issues in the family before, and of course these issues become further
amplified, right? Yeah,
totally.
Absolutely.
And you know yourself, one of the kids have got a cold, you're going to worry about that child first, you're going to ask about that child first before you worry about the others. So we thought, yay, siblings, we love that. No one else was doing it in a small way. Your camp qualities and your red kites and your challenges that we're all doing in the camps and other things, but no one was doing it in a small. And we were talking about taking groups of kids to the football and school holiday or during the footy season, or taking the groups of kids to the movies. And Tony kept saying, oh, that's fine. Well, we can get movie tickets donated, and that's fine. We can get footy tickets donated. I said, yeah, but he wants to spend his money. And it was really quite funny because in the end it was saying, well, Mum, are you going to spend the money or aren't you? And then my parents had their 50th wedding anniversary, and they, of course, asked all their friends to donate money to support this initiative that their grandson had started. So we really struggled to spend the money for a long time. But that's how we sort of looked around at all the others, and we said, well, there's no point whatsoever us doing stuff that others are doing. So I basically went into the hospital. I still wasn't feeling really well, but I knew I could make myself busy somehow. I didn't care if I was going into the Children's Cancer Centre washing dishes. I just needed to have a purpose. So I went in and I met with, I remember at the time, Jane Williamson, who was head of all allied health. So allied health is the non-medical, the non-clinical side. Your music therapist, your art therapist, your play therapist, then our child life therapists. And I spoke to them and I said, okay, what do you need that nobody else is providing you? And straight away the therapist said, she said, you won't believe this, we don't have any coloured paper, left-handed scissors, glue sticks or Texticolors or colouring pencils. I went, yay, great, how much? Oh, she said, as much as you can get, we don't have any. So this is an art therapist that didn't have any art materials to work with. So I went off to an Officeworks and found out that if you get to Officeworks in the first week of the month, they've got $500 that they're allowed to split 5 ways and give each charity or community group $100 each. So I went, you beauty. So I went, that must have been the Fitzroy one. Got 100 from them. I went to the Richmond one and I went to out near Monash, so the Chadstone one or the Carnegie one. And so I rang the hospital and I rang Royal Children's and I said, okay, I've got 7 cartons of stuff for you. Oh, she said, don't bring it all in. I've got nowhere to put it. I said, that's fine. I will bring in 1 carton every Monday. And why don't I then meet with a different therapist? And can I tell you, the rest is history. The next one I met with was the music therapist, and all she had for her music therapy, and in those days it was all group therapy, was her own guitar that she bought from home. And that was it. So I said, great, just write me a Blue Sky wish list of what you'd like and I'll see what I can get when I can get it. And that's really how we started. And anyone that asked for something, I said, as long as you cannot get it from anywhere else, we will become your provider. So straight away, Monash came back to me and she said, look, we're really desperate. The family that's been buying our lollipops, their child's finished treatment, so they're no longer coming in anymore. Could you get us 25 lollipops a week? Yeah, okay. Is that all? Yeah, that's all we need. Okay, so I rang Royal Children's and I said to Meredy, how many lollipops do you want a month? She said, what for? I said, to incentivise kids to have their treatment or to reward them after their treatment, or to leave a sweet taste in their mouth, because chemo leaves a very metallic, yucky taste. Oh, she said, what a great idea. She said, well, we could probably use 100 a week. Well, we now provide 1,000 lollipops a month over our network, okay? And they are donated by a family whose 11-year-old Pippa died from a brain tumour 7 years ago. So there's a whole beautiful circle and special story. We don't tell the families in the hospital that these are being donated in memory of Pippa, but they just see them. And in Monash, they've even asked for the Chuppa Chup tree so they can pick, because of course now they can't take them. They're not allowed to hand pick them from a tub because of COVID and infections and germs, so they can pick it from the Chuppa Chup tree.
Early days of the foundation, what were your greatest challenges? Because all of the work you were doing, sure, there's the passion and the commitment to do it, but there's also the reality, the resources. Having the idea but being able to convert is at times difficult. Did you do just massive amount of hours yourself?
Time was a huge challenge.
Time is a killer, isn't it?
Yeah, time. Money, we're really lucky because we don't ask for a lot. And because we've always had some monies in the bank, money's never been an issue. We've hardly ever paid for a lollipop, ever. Band-Aids we don't pay for. People love donating Band-Aids. Time was the biggest challenge, and I had too many ideas. Once we got on the road, and I became the princess of $2 shops, and we'd walk into a $2 shop, oh my God, look, it's Halloween, look what we can do for Halloween, New Year, look what we can do for New Year. Themed events became a big thing because when families are in hospital, we learn very quickly, and that was me being, I suppose, perceptive and being a mother of young children. But we learned really quickly that they feel so cut off from the world. So for us to celebrate Australia Day and then for us to celebrate Ramadan and to celebrate Anzac Day and Easter and Valentine's Day and Halloween, etc., was really important. And even today, we've done some research in the last few months and families have commented how important it is when you're locked up in hospital or locked up at home and you can't get out because your kids are extremely immunocompromised, etc. So time and just finding enough really good people who genuinely wanted to be involved because they wanted to do good. We had lots of people that say, I volunteer with Koala Kids. Oh, do you? Really? And who do you work with at Koala Kids?
Funny you mentioned that. That was actually going to be, Mandy's actually answered a couple of my questions before I was going to answer. My thing was going to be is that what I've found is that at times there's a willingness to give money, but giving money isn't always necessarily...
No, you need a balance between people.
You need a balance. Yeah. And I was going to say early days, how did you go finding sufficient hands to help? Was there people in your sphere of influence that were willing to help?
There were, and anyone that put up their hand and said they wanted to volunteer at Koala Kids, I'd say, great, come on in. And then I'd find something for them to do. And often I would spend my whole day finding things for them to do rather than actually doing stuff. I would have been better off just actually doing it myself rather than trying to find jobs for people all the time. That's been a challenge. And with Jess has been working with us full-time now, I'll say nearly 4 years. Before that, she came to us as an intern from an events at William Anglis, events diploma she was doing. We have lots of good volunteers put up their hand, but we don't always have a role for them, and we no longer babysit. Once I had a stupid idea to bring 15 kids in for a day on school holidays, and they spanned from about grade 3 to year 11. And some of them were there because their mothers dropped them off because they needed something.
Probably didn't get much done that day.
Very little. Oh, no, they were great for the first hour or two. That was at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. By 3 o'clock, I was ripping my hair out, so I learnt from that.
As you were developing Koala Kids, was there difficulty in narrowing down exactly what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Like you said before, you had all these amazing ideas, but the reality of it is, as much as you had money in the bank and you did have people that were willing to help you, you're the leader of this thing.
Correct.
Like, it's you that needs to steer the ship.
And I'm the greatest asset, I'm the greatest risk, but I'm also sometimes the worst enemy because I find it very hard to say no. I think, I had to find 13 bikes. Some kids, the families just can't afford their bikes. Well, of course, we got responses when we shouted out to the families. We got responses from 52 families for bikes. We didn't have anywhere near enough. So I've actually now learned that, unfortunately, as much as we'd love to do, accept those 13 made bikes, that we can't use it.
Yeah.
Right? Royal Children's now, going back to the challenges. The other greatest challenge of everything we've done is also been learning to work with hospitals. Every hospital has different rules. They have different regulations. They have different protocols. And I could be full-time. I could have been full-time just working within those because we're sending volunteers and we go into the hospitals ourselves. So that's been enormously challenging because a great idea to Bendigo Health, where we donated 2 little orange, you saw the little orange ride-on Range Rover-style car. To get 2 of those into there took probably a year and a half, and the kids love it. So the kids coming in for surgery, they drive the car.
And is that
surgery.
Just rules and regulations around
rules
what the hospital?
Yeah. So we're now in 6 hospitals. We're desperate to get them into Royal Children's and Monash. Monash have said, just send them. I said, no, I'm not going to just send them because they will sit there and collect dust until you've got the okay from OH&S and someone can wipe them down or spray a mist over them to clean them each time. So that's a serious challenge. And that can really stifle us. In the hospital, the nurses will say, but we love it, can't we have it? We go, you get the okay and we'll do it.
Your main aim of your charity, I'm not being presumptuous, but the main aim of everyone's charity is to be able to get resources and help to the coalface of the problem, whatever the problem may be that Correct. You're supporting. How much of your time's chewed up with bureaucracy and rules and regulations?
Not as much now because I've learned to balance my time. While I was overseas recently, I let our executive, of which I'm a member, so the structure of Koala Kids is we have a 5-member board and then we have a 5-member executive and then we have an events committee and we have what we call a young adults events committee. However, they've applied in writing to have the young adults removed from their name. That's Nick Mandy and his mates. So they're a major source of revenue. Yeah, exactly. We're not kids anymore. So while I was away, the executive looked at every single program and activity we do. Before I went, Jess and I divided them into the 4 areas: the distraction, the patient support, the family support, and the healthcare workers, who are integrally important to us. So they are one of our major stakeholders, along with our volunteers and the families. So I let the executive, while I wasn't there, with all my emotion, take the emotion out and work out what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. Because what we actually realised is we were spending a lot of time on programs that weren't as important to Koala Kids and to our families, rather than spending more time on those programs that are really important. So we weren't doing a really good job on a whole lot of stuff because we were trying to do too much stuff. I will preempt by saying 2.5 years ago, we were only providing stuff to children and families in hospitals. We didn't go home, okay? And that kept us busy. And we were touching every kid that came through the hospital, either for a day treatment or because they were admitted, both into the children's cancer centres, Peter Mac, where they go for their radiotherapy, and regional hospitals where kids that live outside Melbourne can go locally. So we, as soon as, of course, 23rd of March, I think it was, when the doors to the hospitals closed, slammed shut, we weren't even able to send resources into the hospitals. We thought, well, we're not going to close up shop now. We can't leave these families in their serious hours of need. So we started the Happy Base, and we invited families to register their details with us, and we would send them things home. So we've been doing Zooms of all sorts over the last 2.5 years and sending cartons and cartons and cartons full home for the cooking class. So we'd be making, look pretty ominous actually, measuring out flour and caster sugar and sending all the ingredients home for the cooking class. Or we do a fabulous every Christmas gingerbread house making. So we send all the elements of the gingerbread house. And then we do a Zoom or we send a video, a link, so that they can learn how to make their own gingerbread house. So we've done tons of stuff. One Friday, I remember there were 70 kids making volcanoes out of foodstuffs and blowing them up all over Melbourne. So we grew this Happy Base. And then, of course, 6 months later, when some of the hospitals said, well, you can start sending us resources now. So we went back to doing that out of my garage at home because, of course, we weren't working from the office. So the cars were out and we turned the L-shaped garage into this huge distribution plant. And our pro bono courier partner, TIG Freight, we don't pay for a courier. We haven't paid for a courier probably for 5 years, 6 years maybe. And they ship stuff all over Victoria and Tasmania and some families interstate. They pick up things and bring them to our office, and where they can't, we use volunteers. So they're a major program partner like Corjo, I was telling you, who are in the travel goods business, and they donate all our space and we don't pay any outgoings. So that's where we're really lucky.
On your website, your mission is provide small things that make a difference to children and young people during cancer treatment. You do all of these things. For the listeners, if we whittle it down to what does now, because it's continued to change as you've grown it. Looking around now, you obviously do so much more than what you did early days.
Oh, yeah. But we still do those things that we did early days as well.
What do you do? If you took a snapshot of what
are small things?
What are small things?
Yeah, okay. Small thing can be a chocolate smash cake, which is a chocolate piñata, and it's in a dome, and it's got lollies all over it, and then it comes with its own little timber mallet. The kids smash it, and it's full of lollies.
Yeah.
Okay, we do 50 of those a month. So we aim that every child on their birthday during their cancer treatment gets a smash cake, either home, okay, and poor Jess has spent hours trying to work out how to pack these damn things so that they arrive in one piece. You can't guarantee it, so she's now done a little kit of chocolate that the mum can melt and patch it normally only arrives with a crack or something. Or they get them in, we have them in all the hospitals as well. So that's a small thing. And it's a small thing in the big picture. It's a little smash cake on their birthday. But you speak to social media, any of the families that have had them, they look forward to it. A small thing could be a port pillow. And all a port pillow is a little piece of foam that's covered in a novelty fabric, which is sewn by our beautiful 82-year-old volunteer in her home, right? And it's velcroed under the seatbelt. And because where the seatbelt sits right on top of their port, if they've got a port or a Hickman line into their chest. So, of course, some kids just freak to get in the car. But a port pillow cushions that pressure from the seatbelt. Okay, she also sews novelty theatre gowns. Again, a small thing, a child's coming in for theatre. Mum and child are as anxious as each other because they've not been in hospital since the child was born, maybe. So the child gets to choose the fabric of their novelty theatre gown. A pill swallowing kit, a child has to take 16 tablets a day as their chemotherapy, keeps them out of hospital, keeps them at home. right? But the child struggles swallowing tablets, and some tablets have to be taken before the meal, some after the meal, some with the meal, some with peanut butter, some with yogurt, some not with. So these little pill swallowing cups, like the kids' sippy cups, but at the bottom of the spout, there's a little grill that captures the tablet and throw it back in it, and it's designed to, the tablet goes to the back of the throat. So these are little things that make a difference. If we did nothing else but novelty Band-Aids, because a child can get excited to go to hospital and choose the Band-Aid to put on their finger prick, which they're so nervous to have because it hurts, but they get to choose the Band-Aid. So their whole focus could be the lucky dip that incentivises them to have their treatment, or they get it at the end of the treatment, or it's something they can actually do during treatment. Or a Cool It pack because they've got bruising, or a Heat pack because mum's got a sore back. Glitter wands. Buzzies, which is like a little bee that sits there, and when we have babies, it's like it pulls the hairs. So you get this sort of little tingling, and that distracts you from the injection or whatever. So these are all little things, and if we did nothing else but those birthday cakes every month, if we did nothing but Band-Aids, these are all things that no one else does, and they're things that we offer by the hundreds and thousands, and they make a difference. We could do iPads. We have done some iPads. We don't buy the iPads. We can't get them wholesale. We can't get them discounted. So I've got a group of mates who say, whenever there's something like that, you tell us and we'll buy them and we'll donate them. So that we can sit here and say very genuinely, we do not pay retail for anything. That's probably a bit of the Jewish in me too, because we love wholesale. But you know what? I don't have a problem asking a wholesaler, in the event that they're able to donate something to us, could they donate? We don't buy jigsaw puzzles. We don't buy books. There are some things traditionally that we've never had to buy, and there are other things that we do get wholesale, but we get 30% off, or we get them at cost.
You referenced before this balance between helping the child affected by the illness, whatever that may be, in the hospital. And then there's this family that's hugely affected as well, albeit they don't have the illness, but they're caring for the child with the illness, or they're a sibling of the family that maybe isn't getting the attention or the need or the support that they're getting. How much of your work is centred around children in hospital, and how much is centred around families at home?
Look, because we're still not physically in the hospitals, more of our work is done probably at home, but as soon as we can get our volunteers back into the hospital, that obviously that skew will change somewhat. So far as the families at home go, once they're home, once we're working with them at home, we try to not differentiate between the kids. So that's a family with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. A lot of them aren't your traditional family model, being society the way it is these days. A lot of the families live out of Melbourne. A lot of the families live in really what we used to call in the old days of COVID, we'd say, oh my God, it's a COVID hotspot. And we were delivering meals into hotspots, and it was literally putting it on the front doorstep because there were a lot of family that were suffering then. We have made ourselves aware that any of our families can have 1, 2, 3, 4 carers. A family that registered with us yesterday, they don't speak English at home. The dad died 3 years ago from cancer. The child has just been diagnosed with, it's actually part of Maddie Rewalt's vision. I don't know if you know of that one.
I do, yeah.
So that it was actually one stage related to Snowdome. And we support those families too, because their kids actually undergo chemotherapy and bone marrow transplants, all very similar to cancer treatment, even though they don't have cancer as such. But we don't say no to anyone. But there are a lot of charities out there that only support children with cancer, that we've actually been told by a parent that a footballer or someone walked past their room because they said, no, they don't have cancer, keep walking. So this family, the mum has 2 children. The older boy is 10. She's now going to the bone marrow transplant. Well, she's allowed out with the child. The child's not allowed out. During the 100 days that they're in there, she's had to bring her mother from Korea to look after the other child. That's a family scenario. We've had a family of 6 from Bendigo or Ballarat. Mum's come down with 2 of the kids, one of them being the child with cancer, the other one having special needs. So she's got 4 at home. Now, her groceries aren't any cheaper because there's 2 or 3 of them aren't there. So she's now got 2 grocery bills to pay. So every family has got its own unique situation. We can't customise our service for every single family, but we try really hard to where there are families with extraordinary needs. They're all special needs in so far as what they're normally, or, you know, one parent has had to give up a job when the child was diagnosed with cancer because one parent becomes a full-time carer. Oftentimes they have to pick up and move to Melbourne because they need to be near the hospital. You know, there's all different scenarios. So we're just trying really hard to cover as many bases as we can and do a good job rather than be jack of all trades and master of none.
And dealing with the challenges that come with trying to cover all bases.
Yeah, well, that's right.
So post-COVID, I mean, there would have been huge changes to the way you went about things during COVID. There was huge changes for most businesses, but probably more so you because you are so heavily involved in the hospital, healthcare sector, all the rules and regulations. Coming out of COVID, What does it look like now for you in regards to being back to the norm and for the future of the foundation?
Yeah, no, very simply. Instead of now doing a board game where a group of children in the hospital were able to play it and then they could put it back, a volunteer would come and check that all the pieces are in it and then someone else would play with it. We now have to do board games that can be given to a child to keep in their room, to play with their parent. Packets of pencils. There used to be tubs of pencils that children could sit at a table and colour in together. No, individual packets now, children in their rooms. There's no group activities in the hospital. So we are providing a lot more things, board games, books. Books can't be shared in hospitals anymore. If we get a book, Alex Rance, the Richmond footballer, we just got a donation of, I think, 1,600 of one of his books. So we will be sending multiple copies to each hospital. We'll be letting the families know, would you like a copy? Whereas in the past, we would send a couple of copies to a hospital and that became the library. And as I said, the board games, Lego was able to be shared, is no longer able to be shared, even though it can be washed in a dishwasher, but it can no longer be shared, so individual packets. So these are all extra costs to us if we need to buy them, or extra items that we're handling. That's probably the main change. And the sad part is that we can no longer do group activities. When we do go back into the hospitals, we can no longer do group activities. But I can tell you now, we're not going anywhere near a hospital until there is no threat of either COVID or the flu, because we never wanted, and I could say I at that point, but we never wanted that any of our volunteers, me or anybody, could be at a hospital today and then get told tonight that last night the person I had dinner with's got COVID and I'm at risk. Yeah. And I've been in a hospital, even with masks and shields and goggles and everything. I don't know what we're going to have to wear when we go back into the hospitals. Our volunteers fronted a room. We've got plenty of testimonials about that gorgeous girl with the happy T-shirt fronted at our room with that great big smile and burst into tears with joy because she said, "How are you?" We don't know what that volunteer is going to have to wear when we do go back in. Masks, I really struggle with. And yes, you can see a person smiling behind a mask, but it's different. So we will address that when the time comes, when we know what it looks like. The hospitals don't know what it looks like yet, so we're not about to try and guess it either.
You clearly, from meeting you today, you're extremely passionate about what you do and heavily involved in the foundation. How do you find it? Like you just said then before, it was really up, so you saw that photo and it's quite emotional for you. How do you emotionally, and I guess the answer is you probably don't, but to a degree you would need to. How do you emotionally disconnect from the environment you're in so that you're not an emotional wreck every day?
Yeah, no, my medication keeps me within a really good... and that's really important because there was no point me being involved in establishing a foundation that was going to cause me anxiety or stress or depression. And that was a reason actually why we went from being auspiced by what was Koala Foundation, then became Children's Cancer Foundation, to then leaving them in 2015 and becoming an independent foundation because there were stressors there, because they were turning us into this big corporate business, which we thought if we're going to be a corporate business, we want to do it on our terms, not on their terms. So that was fine. Our tagline, we believe happy helps. We are the ambassadors, we are the angels, we are the gurus of happiness. Our role is to provide small things that make a difference. Our purpose is to bring moments of happiness to our volunteers, to our families and their kids, and to the healthcare workers. It is not our role to lament the anxiety, the sadness, despair that the families are experiencing. So part of when I interview people to see if we're right for them and they're right for us, I've had girls say, "Oh, don't put me anywhere near a hospital," because they're tearing up as I'm telling them what we do. And I've got a couple of girlfriends who they actually love hearing some of the sad stuff, and they love tearing up because it motivates them to support us more. And we do hear the sad stories, and we'll sit there and I'll go, "Oh God, Jess." And you take a deep breath and I go, and you be normal. And then you go, "Okay, right, it's not our place to be like that. Right, what can we do for them?"
There's a balance between drawing on that emotion to continue to motivate you to do all those things and yet not have it come down on you that hard.
And Jess rang me one day when I was in Byron Bay in January and she was nearly in tears and she said, "Oh, I've just had the most awful email from a mother criticising us for not doing this and not doing that and not doing the other. And we don't do any of those things. Like, I don't even know why she thought we would." And I said, "Send me the email." So I read it and I rang Jess back and I said, "Sweetheart, do nothing. Leave it with me." So I quickly rang Meredy at the Royal Children's just to get some background on the family. She didn't know them. They were from Tasmania and we had delivered to them. Blake's made the most magnificent Christmas lunch that we delivered to, I think, 12 families. Like, as beautiful as what we'd all have at home for Christmas. We celebrate Christmas too. And I thought, gee, something's happened to poor Barbara. We call her Barbara because that was her name. So I picked up the phone and I rang Barbara. And I went, "Barbara, it's Mandy Mandy from Koala Kids Foundation. Do you remember I met your mother when we delivered Christmas?" Oh, she said, you're ringing me on a really bad day. I said, I know, tell me what's happened. And I just let her go. Barbara went, and we were both nearly in tears, but I kept it. And in the end, I said, so Barbara, sadly what's happened is you've heard what people are going to offer you, and unfortunately it sounded different to what's going to be delivered, and what you were expecting to be delivered hasn't been delivered. She said, exactly. I said, well, you know what? I ain't going to say it's not our fault. I said, but let's just look at where we are today and let's go forward. So I said, can you leave it with me? And I asked her a few questions, gave it to Jess. Jess spent an hour and a half on the phone that afternoon. That's all. And she set up a contact. Red Kite had Barbara on their radar, but they hadn't got to her yet. Peter Mac had Barbara on their radar, but hadn't got to her yet because everyone's short-staffed and COVID was rife in January. I can't tell you how many times Barbara has either rung or emailed or texted thanks since that day. A, for listening, B, for caring, and C, for actually connecting her and actually being very practical. Now, we can't do that for every family, but in doing that, it's taught us some other things that we need to be able to offer all our families. So we were able to take the emotion out. I really felt for her, and there was really nothing I could personally do. And there was no point putting $100 in her pocket, or 1,000 or 50,000 wouldn't have helped her. She was a desperate mother who had a very sick child and a second child that she couldn't take to Peter Mac with her while that child was having his radiotherapy. So that is another challenge. It's become easier to take the emotion out of it, as awful as some of the stories. Sometimes we let ourselves be sad for a whole day. We've done that. Okay, tomorrow let's work on it.
Huge amount of good being done around here, though, so I would imagine pretty easy to focus on the good. And
it is very easy. And because you've only got to see that office and it's all bright colours, and we're really lucky that there's 3 walls of glass. So we're as transparent, the sun shines in, and it's a happy place. We've had some pretty sad people come and volunteer with us because they've heard that Mandy Mandy's got mental health issues and she's really good to work with. But we need positive people. I can make some people realise the pluses and become happy, but sometimes I can't. So we sort of say, look, unfortunately, I don't think we've got the right role for you at the moment.
So you do all this great work for others, and I guess something that would have been nice for you is to be recognised for all this hard work that you do.
No, not really.
Order of Australia medal,
Yeah.
Is that your proudest day?
No, it's not my proudest day, but it was a big secret. The Governor-General asked me not to tell anyone, so I didn't even tell my husband until he came to me and said, have you been getting some funny emails lately? What was really exciting about that was that every volunteer, nearly, I might have mayonnaise that a little bit, every program partner, so many people, even from the old rag trade day, so many people picked up the phone or texted or emailed. It made it really, really exciting. And for me, because Mandy Mandie's name is synonymous with Koala Kids, it was so exciting for Koala Kids. It was as though each and every single one of them had been given an OAM. And that was, for me, every day, hearing from different people and acknowledging every single message that I was getting. That was the really exciting part, and touching base with people I hadn't spoken to for a long time. But at the same time, I was Volunteer of the Month at Burundara, and that was equally exciting.
Order of Australia medal, like that would top it for most people. But for you, that's not your proudest day.
No.
What's your proudest day?
Oh, I think I have to say my proudest day, really is delivering my 2 children. I think delivering my 2 children, yeah.
And they sound pretty
2
special
healthy
too.
children. Oh, they can be. They can't be sometimes. But, living in a space where one meets families with children, they're struck by lightning, these families. There is no reason why their child has cancer. I've been blessed with 2 healthy children. One of them, who was conceived on the IVF program, was pretty special the day we had her too. Mind you, it wasn't so special the day. There were 3 of her that were transferred into me, and I was told that there was only 1. I was so desperately upset. I thought it was the saddest day of my life. And she's grown into the noisiest, most gorgeous, gregarious, outgoing, busy, noisy little girl. I couldn't imagine having 3 of them.
Thankfully, only one of them.
Exactly. And it's funny, someone just said to me, I've just been very fortunate to have been away for 4 weeks, so I do need rest, and I do get rest, and a weekend at our home can be doors closed, phones off, lots of newspapers, an open fire, bit of footy on the telly, and some good chicken soup. And I do stop, and I do not talk, and I do rest and relax and sleep. But someone said to me, so what was the highlight of your trip? I said, you know what? Every single time I spoke to my daughter on the phone, unfortunately, she's got a couple of her mother's genes and she suffered from mental health issues, although we've got hers under control really early, whereas obviously I didn't have that same fortune. But every single day or every other day when I spoke to her, and she was happy. She was happy for us to be away. She was happy to be at home. She's with a gorgeous guy. And I said that was the highlight of the trip, because that meant that I could totally relax. Sadly, my mum died last September, so that's worrying about mum when I've been away has always been away. So just knowing that my chickens are all happy and the coop's happy and we're all in a good place, that's pretty special too. And that becomes, as a parent, we're only as happy as our unhappiest child. So when I was saying, oh, but Mum, I may not get to ring you back, I may not get to speak to you tomorrow, yes. And I'd get off the phone and I'd say to Stephen, oh, now I can just relax and enjoy myself, rather than getting off the phone and saying, oh, damn it, we're overseas, cunt. So, there are lots of little things along the way. And quietly, yesterday I got advice that I'm down to a short list of 2 for Volunteer of the Year for the Premier's Awards. And without us getting political, that's pretty special because I represent hundreds of volunteers. So it's not just me getting that. Again, it's on behalf of a group. So I think being recognised for what we do, that's pretty special. And that makes me really proud of what we have achieved here with port pillows and lollipops and, little things.
Outside of your family, because obviously your family play a huge influence on you, you're really proud of your kids and you've had this amazing journey with your husband. Through your journey, your philanthropic journey and your corporate career, you've got a pretty amazing book of contacts you mentioned earlier. Who's been the most influential person on you? I mean, you obviously influence a huge amount of people and you're recognised for what you do, but who do you admire?
Lynn Swinburne. I mentioned Lynn earlier when we were chatting. Lynn founded the Breast Cancer Network when she was diagnosed with breast cancer as a young mum herself at the age of, I think, 32 or 33, at her first teaching role, the first week of her first teaching role, and she set up the Breast Cancer Network. I've met Lynn through Snowdome, and she's very special. And I love her wisdom, and she just calls it as is, and no bullshit. She's great. Miles Prince, his superpower, that Miles is the haematologist I was telling you about, who's integral part of Snowdome. And if he had a superpower, it would be to not ever have to sleep. So not have to waste those 5 or 6 or 7 hours every day sleeping. And that's always resonated with me because I need lots of sleep. And I think there's a whole group of my friends, people who have become my friends. At the age of 40, I actually said, right, I put up the no vacancy sign because I decided that I didn't need any more friends if I could just spend time and be special to those people who've supported me in my life and through all my ups and downs and things. So there's really a whole lot of people, and for different reasons, each of them are special to me. Not that I've taken something from them, but we all love sharing what we do and sharing our wins and sharing our losses. So I suppose no one's mentored me as such, whereas I love mentoring kids. And one of the very intelligent party girls that I mentor, she was actually banned from our house because over mentoring one night we drank too much rosé. And Stephen said, I think that's enough mentoring, Dale. But I really glean from a lot of people, and I love to then, as I said to you, connect and share that with lots of other people. So yeah, I wouldn't say that. And Lorraine Dennistain's another one. Lorraine is one of the most intelligent and sensitive people I know, and she is a world leader and has been recognised for her work in sex therapy, in mental health, in psychiatry, in gynecology, and there's other areas too. And she asked me if I would help her host, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's a German name, and it's for a fest that celebrates an academic at a university. And she was retiring from her seat at the university, and all these leading people from all different countries, so I became hostess. And I was working out where they could have their manicures and their facials. And if they wanted to go to dinner, I was setting up, arrangements at drivers and all sorts of things. And I love doing that for her. That was really special because she's one that's right up there for me.
Yeah, one of the great things about Mandy is that she does talk and she answers most of my... No, but you know what? I've got a question here. Do you mentor, like you've already covered that? So I guess a couple of little ones that I just want to off track, but I'll edit it and put them back in, is as you've grown, because you've grown significantly over the years from being in your garage to what you are now. You mentioned before, like the structure of your management or executives.
Yeah, and the board.
You've got a board. Mm-hmm. How have you managed the challenges of governance and compliance?
By surrounding myself with people who are so much smarter than me, by people who are so much more organised than me. And I'm not saying that I'm dumb, and I'm not saying that I'm disorganised, but I've needed people to help rein in my enthusiasm. Like I once met a lady at lunch and we were seated together very intentionally by the hostess, and someone at the table said it was quite pathetic watching you and Judy over lunch. You didn't have eyes for anyone else. You worked out your football team, you worked out your interests, you worked out your family situation. Judy is now chair of Koala Kids. Okay, so the first thing she did, she said, what can I do for you? I said, I'd love you to come in and help me prioritise what I do every day because I spend all day trying to do everything, get nothing done. And I now do that with Jess. Most mornings we sit and we go, right, what do we got? Let's just bite off as much as we can chew. But surrounding myself with people who can do it really well. Yeah. Really, really well. And we're constantly improving because we're constantly taking on new business. I suppose the reins were let loose for a little while during COVID. And since we've come back to the office, so we started doing all, accepting bikes and doing all these other fringy things that we couldn't do for all the families, but it was taking up lots of time. So being reined back in. And I trust and respect people with whom I've invited into the family. And we operate as a family. And we all have respect for each other. We know where our skills are. We know where our weaknesses are. and we work together really well. So it's trusting the people with whom I'm working and making sure I'm working with really good people.
You answered this question earlier, but I'm going to ask the question. 42,000, in excess of 42,000 charities in Australia at the moment.
Is that the number?
Yeah. Do you find it hard to get engagement with your charity, and do you find it hard to find your position when there's so many people out there?
No, I can honestly say no. Maybe sometimes we do. But because we are really small and because we don't ask for a lot and because we've made sure that what we do pretty well and no one else does it, there is a place for Koala Kids. And my fear is that if I get hit by a tram tomorrow, Jess is great, she'll keep the ship going, but Mandy Mandy is the heart and soul of Koala Kids, supported by all these other people. So, like, you know, how my girlfriend of mine, who's as mad and enthusiastic as I am, she's my succession plan. But we've got to get her married so she doesn't have to get paid to work. So that's sort of my next job.
Find a bloke with money, either or other.
Yeah, that's a great challenge, because how do we keep the great Koala Kids being great?
2 questions for you, and they're probably, if not the most important questions, certainly in regards to what we want to achieve for Mandy Mandy and your foundation in getting people to engage with your charity. How can people help, and what help do you need?
I love hearing from people who have got skills, okay, that they want to offer us. What skills are we looking for? If someone walked in here today and said, I have got 1 whole day each week, or 2, that I can give you, I've got really good organisational skills, I'm really good on Word and Excel, we could take any number of those people, because we're at a stage now, as I said to you earlier, we've identified our core program areas, and within those the programs and activities. And for every single one of those, for us to do them really, really well, Jess is our programs coordinator. It is not possible for her to be able to do it all the way we want to do it.
So would that look like an admin?
Yeah, it looks like an admin role.
In here, coming in.
So, for example, Beck comes in normally every Wednesday. So she'd normally have been here today. Gorgeous, rocks in, happy as, right, with her coffee. Sits down, she contacts, Wednesday 1, she'll contact all the families who have got children with birthdays next month, right? She then asks them to confirm their address details. Are they going to be at home or in hospital for the birthday? And whatever else other information she needs. She then manages that right through to the cakes coming in, her packing them, writing a card to go with each of them, and boom, getting them ready and getting them off and getting them to that family in time. Okay? So we need more Becks. We need a Beck that does the birthday cakes. We want a Beck to manage our meal program. So we send big food boxes out, big polystyrene super duper boxes filled with chicken pies and lasagnas and all sorts of things. We've got a job that is one person, right? 1 day a week, but if she's got to set, she or he have a 2nd day a week. Volunteer registration. When we go back to working in hospitals, there's lots of protocols, documentation, etc. So we want someone who's really good on administration and detail. So we're looking for those sort of people. And if we can't find them, we are setting up a series of trials at the moment that we will say, right, we now need, even though Mandy Mandy wants to keep this as a volunteer-driven organisation and said there would never be a Jess, okay, if we didn't have Jess, we wouldn't be here now. I'd have long had a nervous breakdown and gone home. But if we can't find volunteers, we will need to pay people, like we pay Jess, but they're special sort of employees. They're not just employees coming in to do an admin job. So that's what we need. It's very difficult to get, like I'd love to get Jess's salary funded so that then when I get up at a function, yes, I can say that as our revenue grows that we only cost is 10 or 11 or 12%. It was 19% last year. Our revenue grew, so that'll come down this year. But the only way we can get our ratio down or that percentage down is by growing our revenue, and we don't really need to grow our revenue. It's just that it looks better when you say, we've only got 10%.
Figure.
Yeah, it is an incredible figure, but we want to get that down. So for people who want to fund a salary.
What's a salary?
To fund a salary.
What
so
sort of
65, 60, 65. So if people say, I'm prepared to come in for 3 years and give you 65,000, or, there are people out there that can say, I can give you 100,000 for 3 years. We've got a guy at the moment, and he's prepared to fund us through one of our young adults. And that's been another really exciting area. Look, we could keep talking to the cows come home, but that's Nick and his mates. They do a huge party every year. The first year they did it, they called it the Gala. They call it the Koala Kids Young Adults Orange Gala. And they all get dressed up to the nines. And the first year they did it, I said to Nick, well, enjoy it, Dale, because this will be your last, because their costs were hideous. They just couldn't get stuff donated. And we weren't in a position, we, the foundation, where we were going to start stretching all of our resources because we were already using them for our event that we were doing, which is a lunch. Anyway, the night went nuts and they raised $50,000 over and above their costs, which absolutely straight away made it a very responsible, like before that the tax department would have closed us up because it was like spending all this money just to have a party. And they, over 2016, 17, 18, 19, 4 years before COVID, they raised over $250,000. But not only did they raise that money, they raised an incredible awareness amongst 25 to 40-year-olds or 20 to 35-year-olds for what we do. And then these kids started bringing their corporations to us. And we started picking up corporate dollars. Anyway, one guy who's a friend of one of the people on the committee, he has said he will fund us for 3 years. He wants a new program that we haven't done before. And if it's a salary for something, then he'll do that. So we're in the process of, and he said, before you write the pitch to our board, let's work together on it. And I love that sort of stuff. Love it. So yeah, so there are ways that we can spend monies, and there are other ways too, because we've identified each and every program, as I said to you. So someone like a lady, when I was walking right through COVID, I can't walk anymore because I've ruined my hip walking through COVID. And a lady I used to bump into, and we just walk past each other and say hi. And then one day she said, "You're Mandy Mandy, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Look, I don't want to keep you." She said, "But do you do Koala Kids?" Yeah. She said, "We want to donate some money." She said, "Can you tell me what we should donate money to?" And I go, "Well, I'm going to keep walking now, but can I come back to you?" And I got her phone. She told me where I could get a phone number. And that family donated. They loved our distractables, which are a tub of little items to distract kids during procedures. And it costs about $10,000 a year. And she donated $10,000 to cover the cost of that.
And people that have a passion for your cause and the amazing work you do, say they are willing to help, who do they get in contact with, and how do they get in contact with your organisation to offer their help?
We even have a phone number on our website so they can phone us.
So that's the best way. Jump on your website.
Jump on the website. There is a volunteer inquiry form. There's a corporate volunteer inquiry form, but we're booked out till Christmas. We used to offer free volunteering experience for corporates. We were overrun, so we now charge people, and we're still overrun, so we might have to charge more. We provide a really good corporate experience for a half day. So email, our emails are there, or there's forms, or they can ring.
Perfect. Thank you for being on our podcast. You're an amazing woman.
Hey, good luck editing that.
And I'm so glad that you've been given the recognition you deserve.
Thank you.
You're beautiful.
You're very
amazing.
kind. Thank you. Well, hopefully we'll engage you.
We will. We'll do something together. Thank you so much,
Pleasure.
Mandy. A huge thank you to Mandy Mandy. I've loved hearing about her career path, philanthropic journey, her family values and unwavering passion, and about her energy and drive that have led to the creation of Koala Kids. What Mandy and her team are doing to make a difference for children with cancer, and importantly help support their families and healthcare teams, is extraordinary. To learn more about Koala Kids and how you can help their cause, check out our show notes for contact details.
To learn more about the art of giving back in whatever way you can, visit our website andrewpurdie.com.au and follow us on Instagram, The Hidden Philanthropist. Thank you for listening to The Hidden Philanthropist podcast, proudly presented by the Purdie Foundation.